Hey guys, what's up? This is Ari in the Air. Welcome back to my channel. I am a paraglide pilot and a filmmaker, and I make videos right here on YouTube about how you can improve your paragliding. So if that's something you're into, make sure you subscribe, turn on bell notifications. I guarantee you won't regret it. So I just got back from a really rad trip to Mexico, went to the Chiapas fly-in. Check out my last video about that with some highlights and some tips about how you can fly safer. And during the trip, I flew probably 20 hours and I pushed a ton of bar. And as I was pushing bar, I realized that there were so many things that I had to learn on my own about how to push the bar, when to push it, how much bar to push, that I didn't really get taught. So I figured I'd go over everything I know about pushing speed bar. Hopefully it helps. Let's get right into it. Here we go. See ya. So today we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about your setup, we're going to talk about some speed bar theory, and we're also going to talk about just the physical practice of using the damn thing. So to begin, your setup in your harness, your speed bar should be a couple of things. One, it should be accessible without using your hands. You shouldn't have to touch it to loop your foot into it. So that's really important. To do that, you can do a couple of things. You can use bungee cord to attach the speed bar loop to the end of your pod harness. If you don't use a pod harness, some people even take a alligator clip and they clip it to their shoe so that if they push one foot out, it'll bring the speed bar up, and then they use their other foot to loop and push the bar. The other thing it should be is it should be able to push full bar, meaning that at your longest step of the ladder that it will bring your pulleys together, if not totally overlapping, right? This is really important. You should have the full speed range at your disposal, and proper adjustment will make sure that's the case. As far as speed bar theory goes, when to use your speed bar is a very delicate and nuanced concept in cross-country flying that is known as speed to fly. I'm going to avoid that here in this video, but you can check out my video XC 101, Tips to Fly Further. I go into depth as to what speed to fly is and how best to use your bar to maximize how far you're going to go on any glide. But there is a really insidious fear in paragliding that your speed bar is going to make your glider collapse, and that is something that you shouldn't be afraid of, and you should be afraid of it. So I want to kind of go into the difference between the right fear and the wrong fear. So in general, what your speed bar does is it decreases your angle of attack. It makes your glider steeper and it makes it go faster, which a low angle of attack is what we'll cause a frontal deflation. But modern paragliders are designed and tested to fly the entire range of the speed bar safely. But obviously, when you decrease the angle of attack, you do get closer to the position where the glider would take a frontal tuck, as well as you increase the speed of the glider so that if you do take a tuck, now you have a lot more energy to deal with. Your collapses can get more violent. But in general, you shouldn't be afraid to push the speed bar. You want to be totally versed in using the speed bar. In general, your glide might get better on your glider up to about a quarter bar, just a little bit of the bar. But after that, you're basically trading your glide for speed, okay? Even an Enzo 3, pretty much the best gliding glider on the market, which can in still air get somewhere close to 12-to-1 glide. At full speed bar, the glide ratio of that Enzo 3 is 5.5. It's 5.5. The thing hauls ass, but it's plummeting out of the sky, which if you're in big sink, it makes sense to trade off the glide ratio for the speed to get yourself out of the sink. But any glider after quarter bar, you're going to be trading glide for speed, which speed is what the bar does, right? Speed bar. Another thing to be thinking about when you're flying faster, accelerated, is that you're going to be going through the air mass faster. So if you're coming up on a shear where you have rising air here and sinking air here, you're going to cross that line faster. So you might actually be going through an air mass in a way that is harder to deal with for your collapse resistance in your active piloting, okay? But let's get on to practice. Now that we kind of have those ideas in our head, how do we use our legs? How do we use our hands? What do we do with our eyes to manage this speed system in our glider, okay? So the first thing with your legs, when you start using the bar, you want to push the bar slowly. What happens when you push the bar is it accelerates the glider, but you have inertia and you don't accelerate, so the glider goes in front of you. If you push too much bar too quickly, you can make the glider collapse. That's worst case scenario. Best case scenario, you push the bar too fast and too much, you just end up sinking a bunch, and then you turn that vertical energy into pitch energy. You pitch forward and then you pitch back, and then you pitch forward and you pitch back and you pitch forward, and finally you get to level accelerated flight. What's better is slowly pushing on the bar so that you and the glider accelerate together until you're at the speed that you're looking for, right? When you're coming off of the bar, you want to release the bar smoothly and slowly too. If you just take your legs off the bar immediately, you shock load the risers, because it goes from compressed to having 6 inches of slack in it, and now bang, it shock loads the risers and the glider. It's really not good for your equipment. It also make you pitch back really inefficiently. So if you're trying to fly cross country, if you want to be efficient, you really want to be smooth on and off of the bar. Also, you want to avoid totally locking your legs out, okay? And that's for a couple of reasons. One is if you lock your legs out, you're going to be really slow to react to the air mass as you go through it. And two, you want to be active piloting with the speed bar, especially on 3-liners or 4-liners. On a 3-liner, the rear risers are not nearly as effective as they are on a competition or a 2-line glider. On a 2-liner, you can really mash full bar and fully articulate the glider with the rear risers. On a 3-liner, it doesn't work nearly as well, so you want to articulate the speed bar in an active way. So if the glider shoots out in front of you, you can let off a little bit of bar instead of pulling the brakes, and if the glider pitches back, you can push a little bit of bar to keep it above you. You can control the pitch with the speed bar, okay? So you don't want to lock your legs out, because if the glider collapses, you want to come off the bar immediately, okay? What to do with your hands while you're pushing a bunch of speed bar is, on a 3-liner, you want to use the rear risers to feel the wing and control its pitch, okay? When big pitch changes occur, I use the speed bar in conjunction with the rear risers to control the pitch and to try to maintain an efficient and steady flight. But for the most part, I am holding the speed bar in one position, and then I am modifying the rear risers with my hands, okay? Most 3-line gliders these days have some kind of loop or T-grip or ball or something on the rear riser that makes it easier to pull down on. And that is because pulling down on the rear risers is more force than it takes to pull on the brakes. You have more of the glider in your hands. And so when you hold on to the rear risers, hold on to them like you mean it, because the moment that something big happens and you really actually need to put a serious input into the glider, it takes a lot of force. So hold on to those things like you mean it. When I was learning cross country, I would hold on to the rear risers with 2 fingers, thinking that I could kind of deflect the rear risers and then go to the brake. And now, as I'm learning, there are times where you're flying on speed bar, your legs are too slow, and there's moments where you just really have to pull on the rear riser really hard and pretty far to get the effect that you need to keep the nose open. Also, it's worth noting that as you're flying on speed bar and you're pulling on the rear risers, of course you can still stall the glider with the rear risers. So rear riser inputs are typically faster and shorter than the brake inputs, but it also, I don't want you to be so afraid of that you don't actually pull down on the damn thing hard enough to actually get the desired effect. as I learned so many times I would not pull down on the riser far enough or hard enough. I was afraid of pulling on the rear riser, so I'd be on the speed bar and it would go a little light, and so I'd pull a little thing and the wing would collapse. And now if I'm feeling a lack of pressure, I pull down as hard as I need to until I get the desired effect that I want. Okay? So feel free, really manipulate those damn things. Okay? It takes a lot of force, so it's not like pulling your brake. It takes more force than that, so definitely pull on it until you get the desired effect that you need. And lots of practice is important. Also, in general, you shouldn't be flying with your speed bar in a position where you aren't comfortable taking a collapse. If you're really close to the ground, don't fly on the speed bar. You're going to see online, you're going to see some PWC pilots, you're going to see Pal Takesh flying full speed bar to come into land. And if you're really, really advanced, then that's something that you're going to decide on your own. But in general, speed bar is like some kind of maneuver that you really want to like have some altitude to deal with, okay? So don't skim the trees on your bar. Also, when you're flying on speed bar, what you do with your eyes can be different than what you're doing with your eyes when you fly at trim speed. For me, the faster I go, the more I look at my glider. If I am pulley to pulley full speed bar, you can bet that 95% of the time I'm looking directly at the leading edge. This is something that Russell Ogden, the ozone test pilot and legendary paraglide pilot, preaches all the time, that if you're really going fast, you want to be feeling it through your legs, through the rear risers, and your eyes. As much information about the glider as you can possibly be getting. Things at full speed can happen really, really fast, so I just basically look at the leading edge if I'm at full speed. Also, if I'm at full speed, that's when the collapses can be the biggest, and if I'm going to take a collapse, I want to watch the show, right? So I keep my eyes on the glider just in case. It also just gives me the most information that I can possibly have, okay? If you take a collapse on full speed bar, the things that you need to do first and foremost is come off the bar as quickly as you can. This is also a way to prevent a collapse, is if you feel a loss of pressure in your glider when you're flying at speed, letting off of the speed bar gives slack to the A's. It increases your angle of attack just like pulling on the brakes, and using these two things in conjunction can really change the angle of attack in your glider really fast. So coming off of the speed bar to prevent collapses and to deal with collapses is of utmost importance. If you take a collapse on speed, it's just like a collapse anywhere else. You use your eyes on the horizon, you stabilize your body, you don't let the glider rotate, you fly the side of the wing that's open, right? All the same things that you do when you take a collapse at trim speed, you do when you take a collapse at speed. But it starts with coming off of the speed bar first. So, I think that's just about everything that I know about pushing on the damn speed bar. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I try to answer all of those. If you have any gear sales, inquiries, lessons, hit me up, ariintheair@gmail.com. I appreciate you guys subscribing. Stay tuned for more instructional paraglide videos here. We'll see you on the next episode.